Hey everybody, it's bundle week still for a very long time. I had a nap. Do I look refreshed? I don't think so, but we try. We try. And so we're so excited to have Dr. Shayla with us today, and we're just getting to know her. We were chatting a little bit. Cheryl may be showing up in a few minutes as well. I see Plants Only Muncher is here, and Maryland, and Mona, and Kathy. Ooh, Kathy just got done with a tax webinar. That almost makes my day feel easy. This is a lot more fun. And so, Dr. Shayla, would you like to introduce yourself for people who may not know who you are yet and talk about what's in the bundle and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me on your channel, Kathy. I am excited to share with your audience. So, I am Dr. Shayla Toombs Withers for folks out there. I am the physician owner of Essence of Health Wellness Clinic and Coaching. I have a brick and mortar practice in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then I also offer some virtual plant-based nutrition and health coaching. Within my practice, it has a lifestyle medicine focus. So, we incorporate plant-based nutrition, mindfulness, movement, sleep. We look at all of these different factors in terms of preventing and reversing chronic disease and improving your health. And then my focus within virtual coaching is helping those with metabolic conditions. So prediabetes, insulin resistance, chronic obesity. And we use these same concepts to help folks overcome and improve these conditions by getting more plants on folks' plate. And so within the vegan bundle, I have included my ebook, Thriving with Insulin Resistance, and it's a busy professional's handbook. And the reason I even titled it that is because a lot of the folks that I see, they tend to be professional women with families, with businesses, and a lot of times, they've just put everything in line before themselves. And so in this book, we talk about ways that folks can get a better understanding of insulin resistance, what's causing it, how to get those proper nutrients and plants on your plate using whole food plant-based guidelines to help improve that condition of insulin resistance. I go into some parts of mindfulness and mindset and how that plays a part within our stress reduction and within our sleep, which also plays a part on insulin resistance. I add in some of my own little kitchen hacks, some of the gadgets that I use. I'm a wife, a mom of three, and with the business, I know about having a busy life.
You got some stuff going on,
Right,
right?
exactly. So I include those little hacks that I use to be able to do this. And so I just, threw it all in that book to be able to help folks with insulin resistance be able to thrive and improve their condition.
I love that. So when you work with people, so it sounds like you work with people in person and virtual. In person in your area, but if I
Right.
was from somewhere else, I could also make an appointment with you.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. I the brick and mortar practice is in Chattanooga. So while it's been on the state line, I tend to see folks from both Georgia and Tennessee physically, and then virtual from anywhere.
Okay, that sounds
Yeah.
lovely. And
Yeah.
so, if I wanted to work with you, and you guys all know, let me go ahead and go where I'm talking to everybody. So, down below, or depending on how you're watching this, it could be to the side, right? I've got all of Dr. Shayla's information, so make sure that you're following her. And if this seems like something you're interested in, do you do just like a consultation, or how would someone go about starting to work with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so if folks go to the website, particularly, they can even just go to drshayla.com/EOH. There's a link on there to schedule what I call it a strategy session. It's free. What it is, it's a one-on-one. We sit, you give me information about a little bit about what's been going on, your goals. We talk about some things that we can do together and how we may be able to work together to help you achieve those health goals. So, yeah, I definitely would encourage if anyone has questions or is interested to definitely schedule that free strategy session.
I love that because I know in a lot of our lives when we're talking to people, people are always looking for a plant based supportive physician.
Yeah.
And depending on where people are, like my physician that I love right now is not a plant-based physician, but she is a good physician, a great physician, right? But sometimes it's so nice to be able to have that, because I know, especially because Cheryl has type 2 diabetes, and I know with some doctors that we've experienced, it was very difficult talking about eating whole food plant-based diet.
Hmm.
There seems
Yeah.
to be some resistance. Do you want to talk a little
Right.
bit about that?
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. Within the field of medicine, I will say, we've come a ways. I've been practicing for about 13 years now. And even I will say, at the start of when I was in medical school and the way things were taught, I was one of the fortunate ones ever since I've learned that actually had some nutrition classes in medical school.
That's
Uh,
amazing and not what you
yeah.
hear very
Right.
often.
Yeah. But I'm an osteopathic physician, and so I think that's where the difference lies too. Because in the field, of osteopathic medicine, even the way it was founded was always on that more holistic aspect, and looking, at that person and trying to help them get back to health, beyond even just traditional medicine. So I did have some nutrition classes, but the way that nutrition was taught for so long, even the way with you mentioned your wife with diabetes, how it was taught was just that, you have to count your carbs and you can't eat fruit and, you can't do this and you can't do that. But now, we know so much different. The field of science and research in the plant-based realm, thankfully, has come a long way, to where we know that it's just more complex than just telling somebody, oh, you can't eat an orange, because it's going to raise your blood sugar. you know, you
Right.
know.
And I love that. Like with, because Cheryl was working with Dr. Lim and Dr. McDougall. We have a health specialist, Stacy Cross, that comes on with us some too. And one of the things that she's kind of taught Cheryl is that, because she wears one of those blood sugar monitors.
Yeah, the continuous glucose monitor.
Thank
Yeah.
you. You can tell I don't
No,
have it.
it's
I'm
okay.
like, my nurse friend knows what medicines I've taken over my life too. Like, I'm one of those. But I know there's a danger. Like, it's both good that you get, before you had no idea what was happening, but then sometimes you have
Mhm.
too much information about what's happening. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, those
right?
monitors. Yeah. Yeah, because I do use those with my coaching clients too, those folks, especially initially, because it gives people that kind of eye-opening experience to see over time, well, if I keep eating this way, I see that, my sugars do this, or, when I don't have enough sleep, I see that my sugars tend to be higher. And so definitely, it's helpful to see those trends. But then, there are other times where every single thing, you might see that little spike go up and a little spike go down. And if somebody's already anxious, it can just, yeah, make them even more frantic.
And it's really interesting because it's been good for Cheryl too. Like, at first she was paying too much attention to it, so she was kind of like, it's good to have the information, but I think just like everything else, like, and again, I'm not trying to say there's only Dr. McDougall. It's just I'm speaking from my experience. Like, it's called the starch solution. So obviously there's a lot of starches involved, but people will get into thinking, well, should I have this kind of sweet potato or that kind of sweet potato? Or what kind
Mhm.
of rice should I have? And it's like, no, all the starches you can have. And I think sometimes when we're trying to make these improvements, I see people getting into the minutia sometimes more than
Yeah.
the one bigger step that might help them. Like, there's some minutia stuff that can help for sure.
Hmm.
Like, even if you're not walking at all, like Cheryl notices at least, and you can tell me if this is just her experience and not a general experience, but when we are walking every day, her blood sugar does so much better. So that's a small thing, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and the key to that, which I try to remind folks that I work with of, is that it's the trend. Yeah, these continuous monitors, they're going to show us like hour by hour, minute by minute, but really it's more important for me as the physician is I'm looking at that trend. So what has it done, over 2 weeks, really, what we look at, because just spot checking, that's, you might as well just be pricking your finger all the time. And as we know, that's not going to be very accurate or efficient either for your long-term health goals. So really it's looking at those trends. But yeah, even doing just those little things of moving our bodies, it's such a natural way of lowering blood sugar. Another one I like to mention to folks is sleep, because I just don't think it's talked about enough. But yeah, so I'm also board certified in obesity medicine, family medicine, and obesity medicine. And what we've learned even within the field of obesity is that there are certain hormones that are triggered when we don't get quality sleep. And what those hormones do is they raise our cortisol levels. They make us have elevated blood sugar, promoting insulin resistance. They make us have more food cravings for those fat, sugars, and those more crave-worthy foods, and in turn make us gain weight. And so sleep plays also such an important part into that. So you're certainly right. It's so much, more than just that one thing that you might have eaten at lunch or whatever.
And that's, I think, especially when people are looking at things. And again, like when we were weighing ourselves every day for a little while just to get a baseline, like, and now we're not. So I think so I agree. It's good to get that data, because I go to the doctor and she does my labs several times a year, and I'm happy to know that information. But I think, again, when we just get into that, oh, I'm going to do this by 10, and it's like, instead of thinking, oh, how is my sleep? Am I going to sleep at the same time? Cheryl's having some trouble with her sleep right now. So that pulls in there for me. Like, what would be some suggestions that you might have for either, and I'll let you go either way you want, either about sleep or some first steps if people maybe have either just been diagnosed with diabetes or pre-diabetes, some ways that maybe they can keep from getting that diagnosis.
Yeah, I love both of those questions. So I'll tackle into sleep just because we were still talking there. Yeah, so if someone is having trouble with sleep, the first thing I'll tell them is, definitely go see your doctor to make sure there's no underlying type of disorder. Sleep apnea is something that we're seeing more commonly, and sleep apnea can actually affect your heart long term. It can actually cause blood pressure issues and some, other more chronic conditions. So definitely, see your doctor and make sure you don't need a sleep study and there's something more concerning. But if it's just, other troubles with falling asleep or staying asleep, a couple of things you can do. Exercise. So like you mentioned, going for those walks and things, just burning off of that energy is helpful. Another one is turning off that phone or computer or television, whatever that light is that's keeping you awake, turning it off to help even shut your brain off. What we know now is that for those of us who, lay and look at our, social media before we go to bed, those lights tend to signal to our brain that it should still be more alert and awake. So turning those things off in a timely manner and giving your brain time to quiet down and realize, hey, it's sleepy time is good to do. Trying to keep your room at a cooler temperature, believe it or not. Most of us sleep better, in a cooler temperature, so not keeping your room too warm. And then another thing I like are sleep sounds or sleep stories. So, there are a lot of them now. You can get an app, or you can even go on YouTube and find some. But sleep meditations and sleep stories, those are also great too, just to really settle your brain down and help you really dial into your sleep and get more quality sleep that way.
I love that. We do some of those things. They were just seeing you, but I smiled really big because actually Cheryl has been like, you're going to kill the cat. I'm like, it's 57 degrees. We're all fine. No one's dying. We have a really long-haired cat too. But I agree, and I have, because my brain is so ADHD, I pick up on sounds and hear a lot of things. We always have to have those sounds.
It's
huge for me. It may not work for everyone, but if you were ever a person who used to have the fan on all summer, and then as soon as fall came and you're like, why am I not sleeping so well?
Right, exactly. It was that same thing, just having that white noise in your ear. And yeah, and it works across the board. I even subscribe to an app for my kids to even listen to kids' sleep stories at bedtime. And it's now to where they'll even ask for it. It's like, we need our sleep story. It
Oh,
does.
that's so
It helps,
cute.
so across the board, I definitely recommend folks, really tuning into that sleep and focusing on that.
I love that. And there are a lot of free things, and you can find some fun stuff on YouTube. I think once a year at Black Friday, Calm, the Calm app, you can pay once and get forever. I finally did it at the right time this last time.
Yep, yep, that's what we have, and I actually I love it so much. I got me a Calm app subscription, and then I got the kids their own, so that I wouldn't get the recommendations for like the kids stories.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and sometimes when you
Yeah.
just feel a little blah, like you can, the adult stories are nice too. Like you can go on a train ride and they'll tell you about the
Mhm.
countryside. And it's, for me, I tend to work a little bit too much.
Yeah,
Shocker to everyone. Right?
yeah.
But
You're an entrepreneur. I get it.
right, there's a lot to do. There's never nothing to do. But I do like that idea too, and that I love that you mentioned the stories because I feel like that's not very mentioned very much when people are talking about sleep hygiene and different ways to shut off.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason I even as a personal preference prefer the stories even just over like the white noise ones, because I feel like the stories they even help you to have kind of those, it takes that creative brain and kind of just takes your brain off to whatever. Like you said, the train ones, those are some of my favorites, the ones about the different train rides. And, at one time you're listening about being in like Paris or somewhere and then you're out. And, I don't think I know how any of them end because they work just that well.
I feel you. I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, but I love that voice, right?
Yeah, it's so
And
soothing. Yeah,
And as grown-ups, we deserve to have our night-night stories too, is the way I think
exactly,
about it. Um,
exactly.
Brenda
Yeah,
says she loves my sleep stories. I'm usually asleep before the story starts. And
yeah.
Apple says, I'm a sleep hygiene ninja. I need my
Ah,
sleep time routines.
awesome.
And my wife Cheryl's just got that Philips Cocoon earbuds with the sleep app. She just tried it last night. So
Okay, I haven't heard of that one, but
it's
sounds great.
if she comes in time, there's some little thing that comes back and it actually tells when you go to sleep and changes it from like spa music to white noise or something.
Oh, so it can mix it up even.
Yeah,
Nice.
I haven't tried it.
Yeah.
Oh, and Apple like sound baths and diural
Oh,
diurnal.
diurnal.
Thank you, because it sounds like I'm talking about a bathroom. That was really sad.
Okay.
But and Cocoon earbuds to the Google, Apple says,
Yeah.
and has a Philips wake up night light, and
Uh,
sometimes is thinking of pairing that with sleep buds. I'm gonna take a drink of water
oh,
and see
that
if
may
I
be
can.
one of those that help you create a routine, is what it sounds like. So yeah, I've heard about those where it'll like you send like a light to say, it's your wake up time versus turning it to a darker one at your sleep time. That's what it sounds like. That's fancy.
I don't have one, so we'll find out about that. Right? We'll see if I end up getting
Yeah,
one.
we're all adding to our Amazon Christmas list.
That's what Bundle Week is like, finding all the new
Yeah,
things out from all your new friends. I always make new friends
right.
every time.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
what other things would you like to tell us today
Yeah,
or
and so
share?
I will go back to your question about if someone, has recently been diagnosed or especially if they're in like that pre-diabetes range or just elevated blood sugar. Some things I like to mention for those folks is that it's really important to take that diagnosis seriously. Sometimes we'll hear it or think of it as, oh, well, I don't have diabetes yet, kind of thing. So I'm good. But the statistics on that is that 50% of folks with prediabetes will develop type 2 diabetes within a 10-year time frame. So that's a pretty high statistic. So you definitely want to take that seriously. And if you've already been diagnosed at that step, go ahead and start implementing these things. So really, you definitely want to change your nutrition and go into a more whole food, plant-based type of way of eating. And what I typically start with, because, and I'm sure you've probably met two people, Kathy, who are kind of one or two ways. You have those folks who will just like dive in full force and, you're like, I'm clearing out the whole refrigerator, the whole pantry, and I'm just going to go for it. But then you have those folks who maybe, need a little bit more of a nudge. And that's okay too. So, if who, listening out there, if you're one of those people that need more slow approach to it, then I typically tell folks to start with what you enjoy first. So whether that be, you enjoy tacos, for instance, then start with trying to make some meatless tacos, try adding more beans or more avocado, make a fresh salsa, and try it that way and see how you feel about that. And then once you try that, and the key to it really is after you eat. For a lot of people, I always ask people, well, how did you feel after you ate that versus, when you eat what you typically eat? And usually the response is, I felt great. I felt, so much more energized, or I felt, whatever, but it's usually that they felt better. And so having people really tune into that and realizing, yeah, you want more of that. And so then let's incorporate more of these meatless meals and things onto your plate that way. But really just, starting with what you enjoy. And then another tip I like to employ is for people to really keep it simple. I know we're talking about the bundle and there's some fabulous recipes, but
it's okay. There's all kinds of things in the bundle too.
Yeah. I say keep it simple. So if that just looks like, rice and broccoli for you is what you feel like you can do on your best day to get started, then get started there. And do that. And then work your way up to some of the more fancy stuff.
And I absolutely agree with you too. So I'm a recipe developer. So obviously I have recipes, but we have a book in here, and it's got pretty simple recipes in it about the starch solution stuff we were doing. But some of it's like cooking oats and rice in the Instant Pot.
And I love the Instant Pot. I mentioned that one in my book too. So
what do you make in your Instant Pot?
Yeah, so definitely oats. I love to use it for my still cut oats, my oatmeal. I use it for potatoes. They're so easy to just, throw them in that way. I love them that way, even over putting them like in the oven. I also will make, if I'm making, there's a broccoli soup that I like to make. And so I use it to put all the ingredients in that, and then I transfer it over into my blender to blend it down, and it turns into, turn it into like the consistency of a bisque. But yeah, I love that Instapot. Like I said, busy professional hacks. I can throw that in there. I can go do a number of other things and I'm not standing over the stove, stirring and watching stuff boil. So I love the Instapot.
Well, see, I liked, actually, a friend of mine called me the appliance whisperer. So, like, I have an air fryer cookbook, slow cooker cookbooks, Instant Pot cookbooks that I've been doing for a long time, because I'm with you. Because you can put something in your Instant Pot. You can have a hard day, come home, throw your stuff in your Instant Pot, and go take your walk, or even lay down and change into your jammies. But it gives you that little bit of time, because there's also nothing wrong with standing in front of the stove. And if you feel like it and you like it, that's fine. But I think that ends up being people's default. I don't have that tablespoon worth of energy to stand here and saute this. And just to throw things in.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also love it for greens. I think we talked about, I'm originally from Atlanta, so from the South. And so I, grew up with collard greens and turnips and those things with my grandmother. And of course she would, cook them in the big pot over the stove, but that's not me. So I throw it in the Instapot, set it, walk away, come back and they're perfect.
Right, because when you're busy, it's kind of nice. I know some people are like, well, why do you want all the gadgets? And I'm like, it's not that I think everybody needs all the gadgets I have. You have to find the one that works best for you. So, like, we do our oats in the slow cooker because my wife can put them in before we go to bed. And when we wake up, if it's early or it's late, we're ready to go. And so I
Right.
find that people who have more energy when they come home from work, like 10,
Mhm.
15 minutes, Instant Pot's their jam. And if
Yeah.
you just can't possibly do it, like cutting up everything the night before, throwing it in your slow cooker in the morning, still gives you that. I do that and I work from home. If I know I'm having a hard day, I want to have
Yeah.
super chili ready because if not, I
Right.
can make bad choices.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Yeah, and that's what I love my slow cooker for. My slow cooker is really my chili and my vegetable soup or my veggie lasagna. That all goes into the slow cooker for those.
I
Yeah.
feel like we're on the same train of thought, and I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something, Kathy. So I actually saw you on Chef AJ, now that we're talking appliances, when you were doing the Ninja Creamini, the ice cream
Yeah.
recipe. Yeah.
Do you have
And
one?
I do. I ended up getting one after I saw you show how easy that was. And like I said, I have kids and they love it. They're like begging, like, when can we put more stuff in that? They call it ice cream maker. When can we put more in that ice maker?
And it's so
Yeah.
fun. And there's actually one or two Ninja Creamy books in the bundle. It's not mine, but I love the Ninja Creamy, and I'm actually working on a whole new book of recipes with using more like sweet potatoes this time and cauliflower, beans, and zucchini and stuff. So
Oh, yum. I'll be on the lookout for that too. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and my
And so
wife,
for
even
our
though
folks, yeah,
oh,
and for our insulin resistance folks, so also, going back to dessert,
mhm.
because, a lot of people with diabetes think that they can't have dessert because of, sugar and carbs, but having whole food, plant-based type of dessert, like we're talking about with the creamy and put in, those fresh or frozen fruit rather, into there and making your own ice cream that way is delicious, and so much better for you than buying something off the shelf. So,
Well, and it's so you can be cheap like me. Evidently, this is my cheap week because food is going up so much, and so like you could get a pint of a vegan ice cream that isn't very good for you. It's probably full of some
right.
stuff, lots of fat.
Yeah. Mhm.
And now sometimes they're $8 for a pint. It makes my
Yeah,
head
they can be really
explode.
expensive.
Or you can buy a can of pineapple and juice and throw it in the thing. So I know that the Ninja Creamy is like, depending on when you get it, $150 to $200. But if you eat things like that,
Mhm.
you really can make your money back fairly quickly. But like a good one that I do a lot of times is I get the canned pears in its own juice. I use that, I puree that as the sweetener. And then you add
Wow.
whatever fresh fruit. So in the winter, I put applesauce in there or pumpkin and spices. But
Yeah.
but you could do strawberries and balsamic. It's just,
Oh, I haven't tried it with the pear to make the juice out of that. I like that tip. I'm gonna try that.
I think you'll like it. Your kids will like it too. And if you have leftover steel cut oats, I've been experimenting and hopefully in the new book. So if we have leftovers, I'll put about a cup or a cup and about a cup into the pint and mix all the other ingredients in. And it comes out really thick like a Breyer's ice cream consistency.
Ah, yeah, and I bet that, yeah, because it probably kind of like a oat milk if you were to get a oat milk ice cream or something of that nature,
Yeah,
huh?
it's
Ah,
interesting. So, what kind of desserts, if I've been diagnosed with diabetes and I'm looking to shift over to whole foods? So, you said I need to eat obviously more beans, more starches, whole
right.
grains.
For more, yeah, more beans. You definitely want to get more whole, unprocessed grains. So things like we talked about. So those steel cut oats, brown rice, quinoa, barley, farro. The thing about these really hardy, unprocessed whole grains is that they stay within our system longer. And so one of the keys with insulin resistance is that your body is so accustomed to having these really quick blood sugar spikes to then where all of this insulin has to come in to help bring your blood sugar back down to a normal level. So the key of really helping to improve and reverse that is to find a way to create more sustainability, more keeping that blood sugar on a level ground. And so by consuming things like beans and those whole grains, because they're more slow release, if you think of them that way, meaning that they want spike your blood sugars really quickly, because they'll stay in. It takes them longer for your body to digest, and so that in turn helps your blood sugar to stay more on that steady state, and that's what helps to improve your body's reaction to carbohydrates and helps the natural insulin that your body makes to work more efficiently and better, because it's not having to respond all the time to you having these really quick high blood sugar spikes, and then it's having to come in and gobble all of that back down, then it's spiking again, but you're keeping it more at a steady level for it.
Oh, that makes really good sense.
Oh,
Two
good.
things. One that I wanted to tell you, I put up here. It said, Apple said, Dr. Shayla is a lot of fun. I'd like a doctor like her. And I'm like, I
Oh,
know,
awesome. Thank
right?
you, Apple.
And Tia says, when I was diagnosed pre-diabetic a few years ago, I was told just to eat more chicken and only eat 20 grams of carbs per meal. I didn't eat meat even then, so I ended up eating some processed vegan food. She's
Mhm.
starting the starch solution now, hoping it
Ah,
helps.
yeah, awesome. Well, I'm glad you discovered plant-based nutrition, because the thing about, and that's more of kind of that old way of thinking that we have to, eliminate carbs, and that we want you to get more on these chicken and beef, and more highly keto almost style of way of eating. But what we know about these things is that these animal-based foods are high in fat, high in saturated fat, and increase your risk for heart disease, increase your risk for certain forms of cancer, and so they just really aren't doing you a lot of good in that long term. A lot of what I like for folks to focus on is that sustainability and more of that long term picture. And so you're going to go much further by getting those plants on your plate. Your blood sugar will go down and it'll stabilize, and you'll be able to do that more sustainably without causing yourself other health conditions like you would from just saying, well, I'm just going to consume a bunch of chicken or a bunch of steak instead, and then putting yourself at a whole other, at risk of a whole other gamut of health conditions.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And our old doctor was really wanting Cheryl to eat paleo, which is
It's
kind of
yeah.
keto. It's keto with vegetables.
Right,
But
right. Yeah. There's people think that, well, if I eat grass fed beef, it's kind of the paleo way instead of regular beef, then I'm going to be better off. No, I mean, you're still consuming that animal fat. You're still getting a diet that's high in saturated fat, that's high in cholesterol, that's going to increase your risk for certain cancers. So, regardless of if they ate grass or not, the animals, eat the plants. So you can just eat the plants and bypass that middleman.
right, I like that. Taz is saying for blood sugar regulation, do you suggest eating the whole fruit if possible rather than blending and freezing?
Yeah, for sure. And the reason for that is because of the fiber. And so, even more importantly, you want to get the fruit with the skin on it. So, like we talked about pears, apples, those things are, going to be really good because that fiber is in the skin. So, even with potatoes, with Dr. McDougall and the starch solution, having potatoes and eating that skin on them, because that fiber is really helpful for your gut, and also helpful, like what I mentioned before, with that more slow release and helping to more stabilize your blood sugars that way. Instead of when we tend to blend things and process things, then that breaks down that fiber component. So, because if you think of the blender as kind of doing the work typically of what your teeth would do, so when we eat that apple whole, we're doing that work, and so we're giving our body more to work with versus if it's already blended down or juiced down. Now, with all that being said, if you're, determining if you're going to have a green juice versus a cheeseburger, then yeah, go get that green juice because that's going to be much better. So.
Yes. And so I'm on that team too, because I feel like sometimes, again, we throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like for when Cheryl and I met like 18 years ago, and she's like, I don't eat any of those exotic vegetables. And I'm like, what is exotic to you?
Yeah.
Broccoli. And I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. And so to get her, like at first she wouldn't eat greens, and now she wants greens every day. Like she likes them. But to kind of start that off, and this is with kids too, I think, because Cheryl kind of has a kid's palate a little bit, is that having something green
Well, a lot of
juice
adults do.
maybe more than I think, for sure. But having those smoothies, it was like, get those vitamins and minerals in her or not. And so
Right.
I like that you're saying that. It's always good that if you can manage the best thing possible, great. But there are some other things between, it's not all black and white.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and my youngest baby in the house, he's quite the picky eater, and so we just got to, you mentioned broccoli. We just got to where he will accept broccoli in its broccoli form on his plate, but we call it trees. So he says, I only want the tops of the trees. So okay, well you can have all the tree tops that you want. Yeah, but for those, other times, you're exact. I fix a smoothie and I will throw everything in that smoothie. He'll have kale and spinach and all of these things, and as long as it's red and looks like the strawberries that went in there, he's good. And slurps it right on up. But yeah, but if that's what it takes for you to get those nutrients, then yeah, do that.
Oh, I like that. I like everything you're saying. I don't say this all the time, but evidently I'm just feeling you today, Dr. Shayla.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I love the way that you're just so easygoing and like you let people be where they are, because I find that sometimes that's hard to find in a doctor.
Yeah, and that comes from really is wanting to, my ultimate goal really is to help people. So I know that, to be able to help people, you have to meet people where they're at, and you have to give people grace. We all need grace. None of us are perfect. So you have to give that grace. But, just helping people, meeting them where they're at, and helping them even just with these little simple things along the way that can be done. And then those simple things will turn into big transformations and big transitions for them.
Do you want to talk about any of the transformations maybe that's happened in your practice?
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I think my screen went a little. There we go. Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you the story of one lady that I was working with, and I like to share this one really because she was vegetarian, and so a lot of folks, they feel or they think that because I'm vegetarian, then I'm already healthy enough. I'm not eating meat, but still consuming cheese or eggs or those other cream, those other kind of products. But she was still struggling. She had pre-diabetes. She had elevated um, cholesterol, excuse me, and then also was having struggles with weight loss. And so we worked together with her and took a deep dive into a lot of the way she was eating. And one of the things that we found, that she was getting a lot of fast food. And so I asked her, I said, well, what would it take, for you to maybe cut back even just on the fast food a little bit? What's, kind of the driving thing for fast food? And, she talked about, even though, she would get fast food, she would get a salad, it would have like cheese and ranch or something else on it. I said, well, probably that time that you're spending in the fast food line to get that, what if I showed you how to make something that's likely going to be even more quick than, the probably 15, 20 minutes that you're waiting in the drive-through line. And so, we did. I, told her about getting more dark leafy greens and just buying the big tub of greens that she can get, already the pre-washed and ready ones that she could keep at home. Show her how that she could, even make dressing to have on hand, like a cashew-based dressing to use to kind of still give that ranch flavor. And we talked about putting more beans pounds onto her salad so that she could help. She joined us so that she could even help to improve her blood sugar and to, overall help her cholesterol and things. And so she did that. She put those plans into place. And one of the things she even came back and told me, she said, you know what? You were right about that fast food line. She said, I found that I can actually prepare a salad that's actually going to be better for me. And I can do that at home. And it's quicker than the time that I was even spending in the drive through. And so, even just her having just that discovery of, I can do this. I can, spend more time preparing healthful food at home and save time and money and my health by doing so. And so she did. She made those changes. She's since lost over 40 pounds. She's no longer in that pre-diabetes range. Her cholesterol is improved. And so she's just doing fantastic.
That's amazing. You guys aren't seeing, but Cheryl's coming home and like all chaos is breaking out over here. Dr. Shayla's being so kind to let us just be all kinds of crazy. Let's move this.
Okay.
You see a dog tail back there too.
I come home and everything just goes woo.
And Max is like, Cheryl's home.
Yeah.
Where's?
Happiness.
Oh, did he go?
He's over here.
Okay, he's got you. And
I
so
have to touch him.
This is Cheryl. And so Dr. Shayla, you were
Shayla.
listening.
I was listening on the way in the car. Yeah, lots of good advice.
Do you have any questions? Come here, buddy. I'll leave you here if you.
Oh yeah. No, I mean there's lots of good information. I've missed like the last 10 minutes or so, but
I'm gonna get him a treat and I'm coming back. Why don't you?
We were talking about folks that I worked with. Yeah, and so I just was telling Kathy even about a client that I had worked with who was actually vegetarian. And so, she thought she was doing all the right things just by being vegetarian, but she was still, being challenged with prediabetes and high cholesterol and trouble with weight gain. Couldn't figure out why she wasn't losing weight. And so we really just, made that transition to more whole food plant-based and even showed her, excuse me, even though, she was vegetarian, just to take that next step and really put it more into that whole food plant-based realm, and how she would go to fast food restaurants a lot. So we even, showed her that you could do this just as easy and quick, even quicker at home, and make it even more healthy for you.
And I think that's the thing. One of the things we've talked about too is like planning. We always try to have cooked rice and cooked potatoes in the fridge.
Yeah.
Because then you can always get frozen veggies, right?
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I definitely keep my stash of frozen veggies in the freezer. At the top of the week, there are like 3 things I do at the top of the week. I definitely do the batch of brown rice that I've done in my Instapot. I typically will have a batch of that ready to go. I get a big tub of the spring mix salad, and I get a big tub of organic spinach. And so we'll definitely start the week with those. Yeah.
So, like, one thing I've noticed, and maybe you can help me kind of figure this out, is, like sometimes I watch things too much, like she said, and sometimes I stress myself out over things, but I've noticed, like, some days are better than others, and I'm trying to dial in, like, it seems like it's this, like, really delicate balance of keeping things, right? And so I keep trying to figure in, and I know the sleeping's important, and I know I'm having trouble with that, and that's probably impacting things. I know I need to make sure that I'm exercising a certain amount every day. If I do less than that or don't do any at all, it impacts things. And I'm like, is there some like magic key that I can like?
I'm wondering
if I know I can't exercise today, eat this. Like, is there any kind of like thing like that?
I wish there was a magic key, first of all. if there was one, I mean, we just have so many people just, healed. If there was. Yeah. So no, there's no magic key, but honestly, it's the trend of it all. I don't know if you journal or not. So I would say if you don't, start journaling and start keeping track of kind of day to day what's going on. That helps you to see those trends and what may be different. And then that also helps you to then track down. So the times where you may notice some discrepancies in your blood sugars, then you can look back at your journal and say, oh, yeah, I only slept this many hours last night. Or, oh, yeah, I was stressed because I had to, these deadlines going on or whatever it was. But yeah, one thing I like to do definitely is look at those trends. So having you journal a little bit day to day so that you can then look back and see what some of those triggers for you may be. But definitely that movement piece, if it's hard to fit it in, there have been studies that have shown that even small amounts of it broken up in the day are just as good. So if you don't have, 30 to 45 minutes in one sitting to do that exercise piece, break it up. So if you can do, 10 minutes when you first get up, or go for a 10-minute walk break in the middle of your work, and then after dinner, another 10 minutes, that's just as good as if you, were to, excuse me, do all of that 30 minutes at one time. So, it doesn't have to be like a all or nothing. You can really just break that up and split it up, and it'll still do really well for stabilizing blood sugar. And then the other pieces to that is really making sure, our mental health is stable. Because if we are, being challenged with whether that be depression or anxiety or, mental health issues, then that will affect our physical health too. So making sure those things are stable, whether that be you need, medication therapy from your doctor or working with a therapist, or even just some additional sunlight. We're still in winter, so a lot of places it's just, more dark, or it's rainy here in Chattanooga today. So it's pretty gloomy outside. So, sometimes even just that piece of it, making sure that, you have adequate sunlight and a good mental health state can also play a part in our blood sugar and our insulin resistance.
Cool. And I had one other question that I was thinking of on the way coming home, and it might seem weird, but like, what's the deal with, she makes potatoes, right? Boils up potatoes, puts them in the fridge so that we have some potatoes for a few days. I take those potatoes out, I heat them up in the microwave, my blood sugar doesn't spike at all. Yet if she cooks potatoes and I take them out right away from the Instant Pot and I eat them right then and there, my blood sugar spikes higher. What's the deal with that?
I bet it's the starch in the water.
Okay.
I bet that's what it is. Yeah, because you know how like when you first get it out of the pot, it's still, sometimes you can even excuse me, sometimes you can even see that little kind of starchy foam on it. And so I wonder if that, having a little extra bit of that, it's causing you some issue when it's fresh versus when it's sat. Because then, after you set something in the refrigerator, you can even see the difference. Some of that water is falling off of it because you see it down at the bottom of your Tupperware or whatever. And so some of it's released some of that still starchy kind of water foam. So I'm wondering if that makes a difference. One thing you can try is rinsing your potato. So after it's cooked,
that's a good idea.
Try rinsing it. Kind of the same deal like what we would do with the pasta, because it's kind of the same deal with pasta. It has that kind of starchy
Get that
foam.
extra filmy stuff off.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to get that starch off and see if that makes a difference for you.
Cool. Thank you.
And there's a couple of questions, but I also wanted to just kind of go back too, and I really like the way you talk about mental health too, because when you stress out, you talked about like from sleep, like those hormones and different things happen. And I think sometimes we don't talk about depression and anxiety also being a cause of that. So that's a really wonderful thing for people to check out when these things are going on. TS says, I like how she emphasizes the trend rather than just one point of time, although for me it's hard to back up and look at the trend instead of right now, and that's not just you.
No, that's everybody.
Yeah, it is. It's hard not to be like, well, why is right here now I'm seeing this and I don't like it.
That goes back to before I stopped eating meat, I would always say, well, I ate vegetarian all week this week just because that day I had like a veggie burger.
For one meal. And so she became vegan in 2019, and so we had gone to a Veg Fest dinner, and she sat next to Josh LaJohny. I don't know if you know Josh LaJohny or Howard Jacobson. They're friends of ours, and so that's what shifted for her. And she gets in the car, she goes, "I'm going vegan." I'm like, okay.
And she's like, yeah,
we'll see how that goes, right? Like, yeah. And it stuck this time. Portobello says, does too much fructose cause inflammation?
Well, it depends on how you're getting it. So, that kind of goes back to going more unprocessed as much as you can. So even with our fruits, so even, if you can get those things more whole fruit based instead of blending it or having it come out of a jar or a can or some processed version of it, because your body will tend to respond differently, especially if you already, may have an insulin resistance condition, because your body's already a bit more sensitive than somebody who doesn't. And so, it can respond differently. But a lot of inflammation more so comes from the fat component of what we eat. So those diets, particularly those diets that are more high in saturated fat, will definitely promote more inflammation within the body. And those sugars, so those processed sugars, not as much as the natural sugar that you might get from an apple per se, but more of the cane sugar and those processed things.
Okay, thank you so much for all this detailed information. It's fantastic.
It always feels good to have what you're doing reinforced, right?
Yeah.
By a doctor. I'm doing all these things and doing all these things. I'm not seeing changes as fast as my brain would like them to be, but I've also been diabetic for a long time, and it's a slow going thing.
And that's the key. We have to give our bodies time to catch up. I like to remind folks, we didn't develop these conditions overnight. And so we're not going to, reverse them overnight either. Our bodies do have to have a little bit of time to catch up sometimes. And then that can look differently in everybody. It's not a one size fits all. Somebody like you may be able to eat a bag of oranges and do just fine versus somebody else, can only have a couple of oranges, just as an example. Right. It's not, a one size fits all approach. And so it has to, be individualized, and you have to look at it for yourself and look at those trends and how you as the individual are doing.
Right.
It's interesting. I know for Cheryl too, like when we did the starch solution, she did really well, and then she got poison ivy because there were goats eating poison ivy in our front yard, so we got to play with the goats. I'm the only one that didn't get the poison ivy, and I have no idea why, because I did everything but lick the goats. So I washed my hands and just dirt is coming, but everybody else was covered in poison ivy, and that caused a big change in her blood sugar as well.
And then adding the steroid topical on top of that.
The steroids on top of that. Yeah. So Kathy, you were just one of those lucky people who likely just didn't have as much of an allergic response.
It's pure luck. Hopefully, it's whatever is about me.
I'm going to get those pictures and put them online at some point. She is all in with these goats, and they are all around her, and I'm just at a distance petting.
Right, you're barely.
I'm covered.
And it was really, really bad.
It was so bad.
It took weeks for her.
And it just kept getting worse and worse and spreading no matter what I did. And I was just like, oh.
And the reason I even mentioned that too is because that's just an unexpected setback. Mm-hmm. So it's not even well, I just lost my willpower and I ate something else. But it's I petted a goat, and now I have a month-long setback.
Yeah. But then think of the other factors into that though, because then after that, so now you've got this rash, so your immune system is heightened, so that's gonna cause stress to the body, and then I'm sure that made you more anxious because you're itchy and you got this rash, so that's gonna compile onto it. Then you've got the steroid, which is the treatment, but that's gonna compile onto it. So you've got all of these different factors just compounding on one another, all of which for you will raise blood sugar, will cause worsening of that insulin resistance for that time period even.
And I do notice that I think that I may be more easily triggered by stress conditions than someone else might be. Sometimes I think my sleep and my stress trigger me more than some of the things that I eat, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly can. Yeah. I've even seen for some individuals where they will even, they'll come in to me because, my background's also family medicine, and they'll come in, with just a lot of physical symptoms. But when we boil it down, it's stress or anxiety or, other things that are presenting with these physical symptoms, but it certainly can cause physical impact. So yeah, we definitely have to keep our mental health as a priority there too.
Yep, definitely.
That's awesome. I know that you have a very busy schedule, so I want to make sure we're at 5 minutes till, because I'm suspecting you have something right after this.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
So we've got a couple of people are talking about, walking in place videos. Somebody else walks in place in their room watching YouTube. And even we use Peloton, and they have meditation apps and stuff.
Yep, and I love the Peloton app. Peloton actually has done a really great job that you're able, to take it with you wherever you go. So you don't even necessarily, have to have the bike or the treadmill there with you to use the app. They have, guided outdoor walks and runs that you can do. They've added some Pilates. Have you all tried those yet?
We haven't tried those yet. That's nice.
I like the relaxation yoga. Like when I can't let my mind go. And I think and I may be saying her name wrong, but I think is it Chelsea Jackson?
Yeah, Chelsea.
She has a beautiful, relaxing voice.
Her voice is so relaxing. Yeah. Hers is another one. We talked about sleep stories. Hers is another one that can put you to sleep. Yeah.
She dusts those troubles right off of you.
But the reason I mentioned their Pilates class, what I like about it is it's one of those workouts where you don't feel like you've worked out. You don't even realize it. So I also do triathlon. And so for me, I saw the Pilates and I was like, oh, this is going to be nothing. And so I did the Pilates workout on the Peloton app, and I woke up the next morning and I was like, ooh, why is that sore? Why does that hurt?
Right. It seems like Pilates gets those little muscles you don't use in other place.
Yeah, those things you don't typically use. And and it was great because I didn't even really feel like I had worked out, because it's lay here and, move your foot up and, it was really really easy into it. But yeah, you get a really good workout. So.
Well, how long have you been doing triathlons? That's pretty amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I started in 2014. I did my very first triathlon. And I will tell folks, I was not an athlete growing up. I was that kid. If you told me to run a lap, it was pure punishment because I was not that person. But once I went plant-based and after I had children, just really prioritizing my own health, I started running 5Ks, and then I wanted a new challenge. So I did my first triathlon in 2014, and then just went on up in distance. I completed my first Ironman level triathlon in 2019. Oh, wow. And so, but really it's just with the lifestyle change of really, putting these plants within my diet and the things that I tell people about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's amazing. Now, TS may have joined us later because one of her questions is, do you do virtual visits? So let's talk about that one last time before we leave so everybody knows how to get in touch with you and get their consultations.
Awesome. Yes, I certainly do virtual visits. I do virtual metabolic health coaching. The best way is to go to drshayla.com/EOH. And it'll take you to links, but you'll see a link there to book a free strategy session with me. And that way we can sit down and see what you've got going on, chat one-on-one, and discuss how I may be able to help you.
That's awesome.
And I'm putting that into the live chat right now so you guys can see that. If you're watching the replay, that is in the description below. Just go below and click the 3 dots and you'll get all the different ways that you can contact her. This has just been delightful. I just wish you could come hang out with us for dinner.
Yeah.
Right? I do too. Yeah. Next time I'm in North Carolina, I have to reach out.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Because you said your husband was from Reedsville?
Yep, he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, we can meet up somewhere at some cool vegan restaurant.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much. And you guys make sure that you're checking out Dr. Shayla's contribution to the bundle along with everything else, because one of the things, since I'm a recipe developer, we talk a lot about recipes, but there's lots of doctors. Dr. McDougall's gut health, Drina Burton's fascia class. There's a lot of different materials in there. So even if you just want to have, you know, basic food for right now, and I will tell you, do you know what I had for lunch? Because she was out. I had the cold sweet potato that I had in the fridge, and I ate it cold right out of the thing because I was hungry.
Exactly.
Because I had,
and I bet it was delicious, especially because you were hungry.
Right, it was delicious. It was so good. Like, that is my favorite default meal. It's just, I like to have a couple of, she doesn't like it, but she likes to have rice to heat up with some
love
frozen
brown
vegetables.
rice. I love just brown rice and either green beans or like a little veggie mix.
Yeah, that was my lunch. I had brown rice with roasted spinach. So I do just a quick roast with some garlic and with the spinach and garlic on it. So yeah.
Oh, that sounds really delightful. Well, thank you again for taking time out of your day. And anytime you want to come back and hang out with us, you just let me know, because everybody is just like, thank you so much. I
would love to. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kathy, for having me. It was my pleasure, and I enjoyed chatting with you both.
Awesome. Well, have a very best day. And you guys, we're going to be Cheryl's going to be making dinner.
If you want to have you want to see some quality entertainment, me trying to cook.
It's going to be good. And Chef Julia's going to come in and help us at some point too. So you guys, keep enjoying all the bundle goodness. It's going to be going through Sunday, lives everywhere. Check out Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And Dr. Shayla, you have the very best night and the very best week.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.